Hi everyone, I'm Juan. I'm part of the ADB's SPR team. For this part of the recorded online sessions, I will be covering the fundamentals of a statistical business register or SPRs. So this will be the presentations flow that will cover the framework, coverage, rules, and key considerations of SPRs. So for framework, we'll be exploring an SPR's definition, purpose, and processes. So an SBR is defined as a structured and organized database of economic units operating within a specific territory, which is typically managed by an NSO. It is compiled from multiple data sources such as tax records, business licenses, and surveys. The SBR is maintained with regular updates and revisions by the NSO to reflect changes in the economic landscape and to ensure data accuracy. So for the first part, typically an SBR is an electronical relational database, essentially a table with columns and rows, designed to facilitate efficient data management and retrieval. This database contains unique identifiers for each economic unit for proper linking and aggregation. Various characteristics or attributes are stored for each economic unit. This can include business name, location, contact information, or industry classifications. So by organizing data into well-defined attributes and linking them through unique identifiers, SBRs provide a comprehensive and flexible framework for economic statistics, policymaking, and business regulation. Units comprising the SBR are often classified into three different categories to ensure ease of use with data analysis. They are classified as business, statistical, and survey units. So for business units, these are defined through three types. Legal units are defined as entities recognized independently by law or society. This can include corporations, partnerships, or government entities. Basically, they are the foundation for most statistical and administrative data collection. Second, administrative units are created to meet the requirements of administrative regulations. Mainly, these units align with legal units, but may have unique boundaries for government compliance. And lastly, for operational units, they are created for practical organization purposes within a legal unit. It can be branches or divisions within a legal unit. Secondly, for statistical units, they are used to measure economic activity at different levels. These units include multinational enterprise group. They are the broadest unit, encompassing enterprises under common control across countries. Second is the all-resident or truncated enterprise group. They have limited scope to enterprises within a single country, but part of a larger group. Uh, enterprise Enterprises are the core units for national accounts, responsible for economic decisions and resource allocation. Fourth are the local activity or kind of activity units. Focuses on specific economic activities within an enterprise at a location. Next is the establishment. They are the narrowest unit, representing single location activities for national accounts. Lastly, for survey units, these units link statistical data collection with business registers. So observation units represent the specific entity being studied, like an enterprise or an establishment. As for reporting units, these are entities that provide data for the observation unit. So that covers the three categories that SBR entities are often categorized into. Next, for an SBR's definition is the territorial area. So ideally, an SBR should cover all of the businesses in the country to ensure a comprehensive view of the economy. There should also be a single central SBR in the country to ensure data consistency, efficiency, cohesion, and avoid duplication of work. Different government agencies like tax authorities or labor ministries can reuse the same information rather than creating separate registers there is a single central SBR country. But if there are regional SBRs, they must be coordinated at the national level to maintain that data consistency and avoid duplication. Next part for the SBR's definition, an SBR's data is sourced and compiled from uh, different providers. It can be administrative, which can be other government agencies like business name register, trade, chamber of commerce, or social security registers. Another source is the statistical sources from censuses, surveys, and manual profiling. Another source can be even from utility, internet, phone directories, and research firms. So by combining administrative, statistical, and other sources, it can provide a comprehensive business register that is accurate, up to date, and useful for policymakers, analysts, and other stakeholders. For the next part, an SBR should be regularly updated and maintained by the NSO so that they can properly capture new economic units, changes in the characteristics of already existing units, and even the closure and death of these units. The frequency of updating depends on data availability and intended use. The responsibility falls with the NSO because of their duty to produce official statistics. So ensuring a regularly updated SBR is a cornerstone of economic monitoring, allowing for informed decisions based on accurate data. And lastly, for an SBR's definition, it is entirely meant for statistical purpose. It should be a single central place where statistical units are derived and maintained for economic statistics. It can be used for generation of population frames for economic surveys, coordination, coordinate, coordination of survey implementation, linking of administrative data sources and units to statistical sources. It can also be used for facilitating coherence across official national and international statistics. Lastly, provide direct information on businesses and their demography. So its alignment with statistical standards ensures that both national and international statistical needs are met, supporting better governance, research, and economic policy formulation. So that covers an SBR's definition. For the second part of the SBR fundamentals, what are covered by the SBRs? So an SBR encompasses a wide array of economic entities such as non-financial and financial corporations. Financial entities can include banks or insurance companies. Non-financial entities can include manufacturing firms or service providers. Government entities and non-profit institutions that contribute to social economic outcomes also included as units. Household unincorporated enterprises and other economic activities that provide a comprehensive picture of the economy. And there are also special cases. Ideally, these special cases, like informal units, should also be included, ideally. Even illegal and underground activities, as long as there are viable sources for this. So the inclusion of a wide array of economic entities in an SBR ensures a comprehensive understanding of the economy, supporting better statistical analysis, policy formulation, and resource allocation. So these covered units should have the following characteristics in the SBR. For identification and contact characteristics, these are used to uniquely identify units, link them to other related units, and provide contact information for survey, profiling, and data updating use. These characteristics can be identification numbers like TIN, business license numbers, and also addresses, contact information, and also the type of unit. For demographic characteristics, these are used to properly document an enterprise's life cycle, its birth, structural changes, its current status, and death. These characteristics can be the dates of incorporation, commencement, cessation, and other key dates for that unit. For classification characteristics, they are used for compiling data and producing statistics, and also for the stratification of surveys. Lastly, for linking characteristics or attributes, these can be used within the SBR to properly align, match, or aggregate data from different data sources. This can be identification numbers to match units within the SBR and or external registers. So that covers the characteristics, or I mean the coverage of an SBR. For the third part of the fundamentals, these are the rules of an SBR with survey coordination as an information source and process modernization. Again, SBRs are built for statistical use. They play a central role in the production of economic statistics, both in terms of the way statistical units are defined and in terms of the content and quality of the statistical data. We can mention three major rules, which are survey coordination rule, role in business information, and role in process modernization. For survey coordination, the key is that it enables different statisticians to view and retrieve a common set of units as of a specific reference date, resulting in data that is timely, coherent, and comparable, and also a collection process that is facilitated and more cost efficient. So the availability of SBRs is essential to the compilation of consistent and comparable economic statistics. The SBR's main role is regular maintenance of a repository of data, a live register. It serves as a gateway for data on business-related units from various data sources. The data can then be later extracted to create survey frames or to produce economic statistics. SBR serves as a statistical infrastructure that enables the validation and integration of data from various input sources, the alignment of definitions of the units between data sources while keeping linkages to source units, the harmonization of the characteristics describing these units, also the continuous updates of the information of these units while keeping a history of their previous information. Lastly, the extraction of data for further use. So live register refers to the ability to extract subsets of data from the SBR. It serves as a foundation for creating frames for surveys aimed at the production of economic statistics. It's a live register which preserves the history of information on statistical units. SBR can and should produce register snapshots and frozen frames. When an SBR can produce sets of frozen frames at various reference periods, they constitute a historical register, which allows statisticians to reconstruct the history of these units contained within. A survey frame is a listing of statistical units in scope for a particular survey. It contains the characteristics of those units required for stratification and sampling, and for the selected units, the information required to contact and communicate with them. So survey frames are subsets of the frozen frame comprising the set of statistical and linked administrative units that match the specification of the survey target population and are active during the survey reference period, together with the characteristics that will be needed for the survey. SBRs can provide survey support through data collection, provide information about the observation unit, registration, keep track of units participating in surveys, control, which is the monitoring of submission of reporting units and response rates, and administration of reminders. Response burden management, reduce or spread the burden and survey holidays. So let's go into detail for this four. For as part of the SBR survey support for data collection, so before the survey, SBRs provide information on the content of statistical units, including links with the administrative unit type, observation and reporting units, and all the information needed to contact and communicate with them. In addition to this, SBRs can store information that can be used to optimize the survey design. For survey registration, SBRs can also maintain a list of all of the surveys in which any given enterprise has participated and has responded to, and determine the current status of these responses. Third, for control, monitoring submission status of reporting units, their overall response rates, and administration of reminders. To monitor the data collection processes, reporting units in the survey frame should be monitored throughout the collection process. The administration of reminders or attempts to contact reporting units may be recorded, but only to ensure that follow-up is efficiently conducted, but also to support any potential subsequent enforcement of a response. And lastly, for an SBR's role in survey support, response burden management, SBRs can also monitor survey response status and durations, which can then be used to measure overall response burdens, which can be used later to alleviate them. Units that are involved in different surveys or on repeated occasions in the same survey can be the subject of a policy to reduce and or spread the response burden. For example, there could be a policy to observe small enterprises only once every 2 years, or to participate in no more than one survey per year. In addition, enterprises that have already participated in surveys may be given a survey holiday, which is a period which they are excluded from data collection. For business statistics, as a rule, SBR itself can also serve directly as a source of high quality information without the cost, time, and burden associated with conducting surveys. This can be done only if the data are of sufficiently good quality, which is typically a characteristic of a well-developed and mature SBR. So the information derived directly from the SBR is only as good as the data stored within the SBR itself. Basically, garbage in, garbage out. Additionally, any analysis requiring more detailed data beyond what's available in the SBR will require surveys to be conducted or linkages with external registers. So for linking with administrative registers, more in-depth statistics can be produced by integrating the SBR data with other domain-specific registers. For example, in trade statistics, the concepts and classification in external trade statistics differ from those in production statistics, which are used in SBRs. A coherent compilation of trade statistics by enterprise characteristics requires linkage of trade and business registers at the micro level. The combination of the key enterprise characteristics and the trade data offers opportunities for producing a better overview of the structure of both sectors. Okay, links with for the second bullet, links with administrative data allow to supplement or replace data collected in surveys and can increase the range of activities that can be achieved with the SPR. So they expand the data coverage and the level of detail that can be attributed to a particular SPR unit. Such expansion in data coverage also translates to its expanded use to produce economic statistics and for research. So fulfilling all of the mentioned uses of SBR could result in a rather complicated database. To expand functionality with minimum complications, one can extract parts or the whole of one or more frozen frames from the SBR and then maintain it independently outside the SBR environment. And then link information from other sources back to the SBR units. So this results in a product that is independent of the SBR, called an SBR satellite or a satellite register. Examples include uh, tourism business register that tracks hotels, travel agencies, tour operators, and visitor services. Another example are the agricultural registers that includes details on crops, livestock, and farming practices. So modernizing an SBR as a role for modernization of statistical production. The development of the SBR is a key to meeting user demands for better and more timely statistics. The SBR facilitates the use of administrative uh, registers and is a potential gateway for combining data from traditional sources and new media, and may serve as a data warehouse, providing integrated data to users. An example of modernizing an SBR, we can assign geographical coordinates to each unit in the SBR, either encoded directly to the unit or derived programmatically from the full business address. The SBR can then be linked to a geographic infrastructure data system for geospatial analysis of economic structures. So you can just imagine how this can be integrated with big data, okay, as an external data source. So these integrations are key with modernizing an SBR. They can easily be done using APIs. But what are APIs? So an API stands for Application Programming Interface, which is a set of protocols enabling automated, secure data exchange between systems. So in real life examples, it can be like maps on your phone, weather data. It allows your phone app and your widgets to connect to uh, servers, and then also connect to satellites too. The satellites can analyze weather patterns and then give insightful weather forecast into your phone using APIs. And also travel booking, where travel booking apps or websites can connect to airline websites to grab details or flight itineraries to provide you via API. And also social media and also payments. So for example, a POS machine where you can tap your credit cards. That POS machine then connects to the APIs of banks that your credit card is issued from. Okay, so that way your POS machine can read and then issue uh, your payment information and charge your credit card. Okay, so by using APIs and integrating SBRs to other data providers reduces manual data entry errors by automating these data transfers. It also allows real-time updates from administrative and statistical sources, and it also enables stakeholders like NSO and also other government agencies to access and share data seamlessly. So here is a example or analogy of how an API works. So you can imagine as an analogy that a customer in a restaurant is your phone app, is the SBR, or an, a software system, okay, as the client. Another entity is the waiter or or the server of a restaurant, which acts as the middleman between you and the kitchen. So that is the API. The third entity are the chef, the cook, the restaurant that makes your order or your requested data. Okay? So the analogy is the client or the customer requests for an order for food or data to the waiter, which is the API or the middleman. Okay, and then the API or the waiter requests your food or your data to the API server, which is the cook or the chef, and then the cook takes in the request or the order, then proceeds to process and create your data or your food. Then the chef brings out the food, and then your waiter grabs your plate or your order or your data, and then gives it to the client, the SBR or the software or the app, or the paying restaurant customer as a response or food order. Okay, then you as a client, the paying customer, consumes that food or that data as a response from the server or the API. Okay, and then the client can consume that and use that data for its purposes. Okay, so that's just the basic idea or the gist of an API. Okay? So that covers the rules of an SBR, the third part, the fundamentals, and lastly, the last part of the SBR fundamentals are the key considerations of an SBR. Okay? There are several practical areas of concern that need to be managed in planning, implementing, and operating an SBR. The two are the legal framework and the IT considerations. For step one, the NSO should secure legal basis for access to the data. The next, implement, set up and implement procedures for transferring of the data. Okay. So for legal framework, in many countries, NSO does not have legislated access to the red data, particularly the administrative data. Well, it might be that the NSOs lack the legal authority to access critical administrative data sources such as the tax records, business registration systems, or social security data. Another challenge is that irrelevant data is often scattered across multiple government agencies like chambers of commerce or trade agencies with varying degrees of willingness to share. Another major concern is the hesitation to share the data due to concerns over violating data protection laws or exposing sensitive information. So next, while the best approach may vary from country to country, NSOs should consider initiating or introducing changes to statistical law to define how data should be collected and handled to build an SPR. So these legislative reforms are essential to enable NSOs to access the right data for building and maintaining an effective SPR. The statistical law should include provisions to allow the NSO to establish a regular economic census, ensure the inclusion of businesses into an SBR, including the access and use of an administrative data sources, establish the use of a unique identifier for businesses, have provisions for data protection and privacy, and lastly, have provisions to allow dissemination of that data to the public. So by including these provisions in the statistical law, the NSO can build a robust, legally supported SPR that supports economic analysis and also policymaking and national development goals while ensuring privacy and public trust. So memorandum of understanding, while they are not legally binding, this guarantee access to and use of necessary administrative data and can serve to complement and fortify the legal framework. The MOU should acknowledge the right of the NSO to have access to the data, specify the units for which data are required, the required attributes of those units, the quality of the data, and the frequency with which they are to be transmitted to or accessed by the SBR, and also indicate how quality issues will be addressed, and also establish a process and time frame for the regular review of procedures and quality. Next, for the data protection and privacy, statistical law and or regulations should guarantee confidentiality of statistical information collected by NSOs to protect the data providers like the households, the enterprises, the government agencies, and the respondents where the data came from. And also, it should only be used for statistical purposes. This limits what the NSO can share to the other public and private parties. And also staff confidentiality commitments, data security procedures and policies, and penalties for breaches, strict protocols for external researchers accessing that microdata should all be considered. So these privacy protections will serve as incentives to the data providers mentioned earlier. Lastly, dissemination. Legal framework can also allow sharing of information that the businesses already make public or is generally considered to be of public interest, like information that any citizen should have access to, like the identification characteristics or attributes, geographical location, and geographical coordinates, characteristics, and also contact information or contact person characteristics. Okay, so that covers the SBR's legal framework. We can now proceed with the IT considerations. Okay, so while planning the SBR, you should adhere to a minimum viable product first, the MVP, which takes off the SBR's main requirement, or basically what makes an SBR requirement. And then prepare it so that it allows the addition of features in the future to enhance the SBR's value further. Okay, so as SBRs are implemented through an IT solution, it's often a good starting point to define and document the requirements, which are the functional requirements and the non-functional requirements. So for functional requirements, this can be the main features of the SBRs and also the role of the SBR that it satisfies, the inputs, processing, and outputs that the data does, okay, within the SBR. Okay, so basically the set of functions that the SBR must be able to implement. Okay, non-functional requirements, it does not pertain specifically to the functions of the system. It can be just the technical standards, the performance of the software or the system, and also the scalability, security, availability of the server and the system. Okay, those are the non-functional requirements. So there are software limitations like the small-scale SBRs. Small-scale SBRs can technically be executed through off-the-shelf and general-purpose software like Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Access, which can be assumed that these are the common SBRs with smaller countries. But there are limitations with this general-purpose software. First, you can't enforce complex and specific data constraints and workflows. Second, concurrent users are not viable. Collaborating on an online spreadsheet can have issues, and it's not a same thing. Okay. And third, there can be issues with the security and data protection controls. Okay, SBR systems, when designed correctly, can encapsulate and enforce business rules and organizational practices, and efficiently automate common tasks. So when developing an SPR, ideally, you should use an accessible and sufficiently common technologies so that the technical experts are readily available in the job market. SBRs must be developed with current and future integrations with external systems and data sources in mind. And when selecting the technology stack, you should consider the upfront and long-term operational costs. Proper scaling up and down of the system can help with minimizing costs. And last, an important one as well, an SPR should have a unique identifier for each statistical unit. Relying on existing administrative IDs can pose potential problems. For example, tax numbers being reused across related units. It can also disclose microdata like the tax number and business name. So again, going back to the legal framework, your provision should also include a like a standardized or unique identifier across all of the data providers. Okay, that's why it's important to have that provision. Okay, data retention policy must also be in place to define how data is retained, archived, and deleted. Common practice to produce frozen frames or snapshots at specific intervals and store for future use. So the data retention must be balanced with operating costs of data storage. So when storing data, cost for data storage should be considered. For example, the team can delete the monthly snapshots of the data after 2 years, except the year-end snapshots that should be kept indefinitely or permanently. Okay. Another useful feature to consider is the change tracking. SBRs as both live registers and historic registers. Previous states of the data need to be retained. Changes of characteristics are treated as additions to the data rather than direct modification. So when you treat changes as additions to the data, it makes it possible to reconstruct that data as of any given time. Okay? You can track, you should track the change date and effective date and all of the changes with the characteristics or attributes in that specific SPR unit. Okay, your SPR or your technical or your IT considerations should also include this feature. Okay, so the development process of an SPR, basically the development flow is incremental. Okay? Following this simple chart on the right side, consisting of system design, first step, data collection and integration is the second step, maintenance and improvement, third step, and lastly, deploying it to production or live usage. So when there are requests for changes to the SBR, the cycle restarts again with the first step, which is system design. Okay? That's the basic idea with an SBR development flow. Okay? An incremental development flow. So I believe that covers the presentation, our presentation with the SBR fundamentals. We hope that you learned something, or if you're already familiar with the SPR fundamentals, it also should be or should act as a refresher course for you and your team. Okay, thank you for listening, and you can watch again. Also, watch next the ADB SPR system introduction and demonstration video. Okay, thank you.